Welcome to Leader Lifestyle Hub. As we have set the target of completing 200 book summaries in the entire year, here comes the book number 171. And the name of the book that we have today is Crossing the Chasm. Without any delay, let us start our journey of book summary. This book has been written by Geoffrey Murray. Let us see the target audience of this book. The 17-year-old who dreams of running a tech startup, who was dreaming of starting a tech startup. The 53-year-old who just realized she might be part of the laggards group. And anyone who has a trouble telling people in 2 sentences what they do for a living. Let us see the small synopsis. Crossing the Chasm gives high-tech startups for a marketing blueprint in order to make their product get the initial traction it needs to eventually reach the majority of the market and not die in the chasm between the early adopters and pragmatists. So let me repeat the synopsis again. This book gives the tech startups a marketing blueprint in order to make their product get their initial traction it needs to eventually reach the majority of the market. Let us listen from the author himself, Geoffrey Murray. Entering the mainstream market is an act of burglary, of breaking and entering, of deception, often even of stealth. Guess the year Crossing the Chasm was published in. Until 2 minutes ago, I would have guessed something like 2005. You know the early Facebook years? No, 1991. More than 30 years ago. Considering most successful crossings of the chasm have happened over 10 years later, this is still staggering. But you might not even know what chasm we are talking about. That's all right. Mr. Geoffrey Murray will explain in detail. I have heard the concept of crossing the chasm several times before, and I keep wondering whether it translates into other segments as well, where the products aren't as high-tech. If you want to learn more about it, Simon Sinek integrates it well into his TED Talk. Mr. Moore's blueprint works. Dozens of companies have proven it over the years. Most recently, Uber, who initially targeted the techie hipsters at the SXSW conference, video drones, who are becoming a standard tool for shooting video, and of course, Facebook, who collected college campus after college campus in his user base until everyone wanted to get an account. Let us see the top 3 lessons. Here are the 3 lessons from the Crossing the Chasm. The chasm is a gap between visionary early adopters and the pragmatic majority. The chasm is a gap between early adopters and the pragmatic majority. Crossing the chasm requires securing a specific niche as a beachhead first. And the third important lesson is position yourself as a market leader in your niche by making a strong claim. Even ever wanted to launch a high-tech product? Here is the blueprint for yeah. Let us see the lesson number 1. The chasm is a gap between a visionary early adapters and the pragmatic majority. The main idea of the book is all based on the technology adaptation life cycle. The main idea of this book is based on the technology adoption life cycle, which states that new technology makes its way through the population in a bell-curved distribution. You know the bell curve, right? So it will start too high and it will go slow and it will be staying same in the starting stage. So the new technology, whatever the technology it comes, it makes its way through the population in a bell curve distribution. Innovators jump on the product at first, followed by early adopters, the early and late majority, to finally reach the laggards. The people who got only got a Facebook account when their mom had already joined 6 months before. The chasm is nothing but the huge gap that lies between the early adapters and the early majority. When a product is very disruptive and requires behavioral changes. The reason is that the motivations for buying a product are vastly different. The visionary early adopters want huge changes and are willing to bet on them against the odds. People in early majority are much more pragmatic though. They don't want big changes and they don't want huge innovations, but rather incremental improvements based on using proven products and solutions. Therefore, most arguments visionaries make to get the majority to buy are not appealing right now. The majority wants to buy from the established brands and companies, like how we are eager to buy Apple products, how we are addicted to BMW and all the branded companies. So the majority wants to buy from the established brand, which is already established, but without having the majority, but buy your product, you can't become an established brand. So without having the majority, you can't become a brand. Without becoming a brand, people will not buy. This dilemma is what Geoffrey Murray calls the chasm. And it's something all high-tech companies must overcome if they ever wanted to see their product become successful and reach the majority of the population. So the chasm is nothing but a gap between the early adopters and the pragmatic majority. Let us see the lesson number 2. You can only cross the chasm by targeting a specific niche first. So how do you overcome that vast gap between the two groups? You start small. Pick a very targeted and specific niche of customers inside the early majority to focus on. Then you can expand into the other niches later on until you cross the critical threshold. Think of it as first securing a beachhead in an invasion to take a stand and then build from there. Like how do you build the building? Initially, you build the foundation, the base. The foundation, if the foundation is very, very strong, then the building will sustain for long run. If the foundation is weak, how many buildings you build on the same foundation, it will not stand for long run. In order to convince your target segment, you are selling a holistic, well-supported product with good references and establish yourself as a market leader. You have to strictly sell to only your target group, which is that your initial target group. Don't expand too early or don't expand to sell to outsiders just because you have the chance to. You will end up adjusting and customizing your product to death to make it fit for every individual purchase. Your product is not fit for everyone in the initial stage. When you commit to only sell to 28 to 38, 34-year-old professionals in San Francisco as an example, you gain 3 advantages. So here is an example. If you want to sell your product for 28 to 34-year-old professionals in particular area called San Francisco, then this particular advertisement has 3 advantages. Let us see what are that. Since the market is small, it's easier to win over the majority in it. And the word of mouth references circulate very faster than the other things. You can develop a standard package product that meets all requirements of your target group. But you don't just have to commit to a certain segment. You also have to talk about that commitment. So always when you are putting ads, put like some age group and some area, some language specific, some micro target groups, so that you can cross the chasm. That means the gap between the early adopters and the vast majority. Let us see the lesson number 3. Position yourself as the market leader in your niche by making a strong claim. Positioning is extremely important when it comes to the customers making purchase decisions. Let us see an example. When I mention Lamborghini, you immediately recall certain attributes in your head, like it is expensive, it is luxurious, it is high-end product, high-end model, sports cars, and rare. These are the few words in which comes in your head. That's the great positioning in action. Pragmatists want to know where you are stand with the respect to your competition, as they are only interested in established brands. But you are in the high-tech newbie, means as a newbie in the high-tech companies, and there might not even be direct competition. So what you can do? What can you do? You define your competition by yourself. When you contrast yourself with a market alternative and a product alternative, there are two things. One is market alternative and a product alternative. You can easily position yourself as the leader in the new combined field. Like we have an example of productivity and in Tamil region. Tamil is the market alternative, product is the productivity. You can combine these two and make it as a new combined field. Let us see another example here. Dropbox could have positioned itself by saying, for private PC users who are sick of carrying files from one PC to the next via USB stick, we offer a hardware-free file syncing solution. Our service makes your files available on any device with an internet connection, just like YouTube does with video, but with any type of file you choose. If this is the positioning they have done in their ads, then many users try to purchase the Dropbox. Why? Because any user can drop files on the cloud and they can access into another PC without USB. That is a great positioning they can do. These two sentences are all it takes to give you a powerful position. In fact, it should not take more than 2 sentences to make it clear to everyone in your target niche. So if you want to make a positioning in the ad, you need to make only 2 statements, not more than 2. This claim will allow you to focus exactly on your initial niche and eventually take the majority of the market share there. So you can then expand and dominate the rest of the market as well. Let us move on to the 3 lessons that we have seen. Crossing the chasm is all about solving the gap between a early adopters and vast majority. There are 2 categories of the market. One is early adopters who starts your product, usage of your product, and vast majority is like the huge market, they can follow your product. There is a gap between these 2 things. So the chasm is all about a gap between visionary early adopters and pragmatic majority. Crossing the chasm requires securing a specific niche as a beachhead first. Means you need to more and more specify your niche to the specific target audience. And the third powerful lesson is position yourself as a market leader in your niche by making a strong claim in such a way that it is both market alternative and the product alternative. So in making these 2 things together, you can make the crossing the chasm, means you make the chasm very less. That's all from my side, and here is the quotation. Entering the mainstream market is an act of burglary, of breaking and entering, of deception, often even of stealth. So if you want one marketing blueprint, this book is a good read. I recommend to that, and find out your target audience of your niche, whatever you have today at the action time. And thank you so much. See you in another book summary another day. Until then, stay connected, keep progressing.